Fall happened on December 25th, 1991. This happened because of economic collapse of the Soviet Union, the inefficient allocation of resources. The Soviet system of power structure was intended to prevent the rapid exchange of information not subject to censorship or supervision by the party. The Soviet bloc was far behind the West in the application of high-tech innovations in the production of non-military items. This particularly affected telecommunications and the processing of information.
As the world watched in amazement, the Soviet Union disintegrated into 15 separate countries, a triumph of democracy over totalitarianism and evidence of the superiority of capitalism over socialism. The breakup of the Soviet Union transformed the entire world political situation, leading to a complete reformulation of political, economic, and military alliances all over the globe.
The main achievements and consequences were the dissolution of the USSR, the territorial losses, and a severe economic crisis and a catastrophic fall in living standards in the 1990s, both in the former Soviet Republic and throughout the Eastern Bloc.
In March of 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev rose to power, the eighth Soviet Union's and last leader. The country was in a situation of severe stagnation with deep economic and political problems. Gorbachev introduced a two-phase policy of reform. On one level, he initiated a policy of glasnost, or freedom of speech. On the other level, he began a program of economic reform known as perestroika, or rebuilding. With this, he unintentionally unleashed the power of the people. Moreover, his policy of economic reform did not have the immediate results he had hoped for and had publicly predicted. Nationalist movements emerged in Georgia, Ukraine, Moldova, Belarus, and the Central Asian republics. The power of the central government was considerably weakened by these movements. They could no longer rely on the cooperation of government figures in the republics. Communists organized a coup d'etat. They kidnapped Gorbachev and announced on state television that Gorbachev was very ill and would no longer be able to govern. Massive protests were staged in Moscow, Leningrad, and many of the other major cities of the Soviet Union. When the coup organizers tried to bring in the military to calm the protesters, the soldiers themselves rebelled, saying that they could not fire on fellow countrymen. After 3 days of massive protests, the coup organizers surrendered, realizing that without the cooperation of the military, they did not have the power to overcome the power of the entire population of the country. Gorbachev conceded power, realizing that he could no longer contain the strength of the population. On December 25, 1991, he resigned. By January of 1992, by popular demand, the Soviet Union ceased to exist. In its place, a new entity was formed. It was called the Commonwealth of Independent Republics and was composed of most of the independent countries of the former Soviet Union. The 15 newly formed independent countries which emerged in its aftermath are faced with an overwhelming task. They must develop, reorganize, and rebuild their economies, their political systems, and settle territorial disputes. In this image, we can see the 15 new territories that were formed. One of the most important documents signed on this era was the Velaveza Accords. That is the agreement that declared the Soviet Union effectively dissolved and established the Commonwealth of Independent States in its place. It was signed at the state Dhaka near Vizkouli in Velovestchaka Pushka on December 8, 1991 by the leaders of the three of the four republics signatories of the Treaty on the Creation of the USSR. Another document was the Warsaw Pact, formerly known as the Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation and Mutual Assistance, and it was a collective defense treaty signed in Warsaw, Poland, among the Soviet Union and seven Soviet satellite states of Central and Eastern Europe during the Cold War. This was the military complement to the Council for Mutual Economic Assistance. the regional economic organization for the socialist states of Central and Eastern Europe. It was created in reaction to the integration of West Germany into NATO in 1955 for the London and Paris conferences of 1954, but it is also considered to have been motivated by Soviet desires to maintain control over military forces in Central and Eastern Europe.